Let's think about it. And we're live. Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the BAMF podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lafferty. Here today with Alice. How you doing, Alice?
Hi, everyone. Doing great. Thanks for having me.
And Alice hosts the Babies with Knives podcast, which does a lot of demos and actual plays, and they're really awesome. You should check them out. They're on YouTube, and where else are you guys? iTunes?
We're on YouTube at the moment. That's it.
All right, cool. And Mr. Rich Rogers, game designer, who has written a game that's burning up the BAMFSIES poll. And if you haven't gone to bamfsies.blogspot.com and voted yet, you should be ashamed, and you should remedy this as soon as possible. But Rich wrote a great game called, and I'm looking at the book right now because, and I apologize, I keep saying it backwards. Your subtitle is
Defend the Block.
Hit the Streets, Defend the Block. I keep reversing those too. So, thanks for joining us, Rich. Pleasure to have you. And I'm going to put your product URL out there as a ticker.
Thank you.
The show. And let me do a share screen. We can actually look at the book as we're talking about it.
Awesome.
So, to the magic of modern technology. Boom. Can you guys see that?
Yep.
How about that? All right.
Awesome.
Lost time with games. So, I'll let you take the lead, Alice. But just to start off, Rich, let's just be honest. There are a lot of superhero games out right now, and a lot of them are really great. What gave you the impetus to decide I want to, create a new game that does a specific niche really well? What would move you to do that?
So I'm a part of a gaming community called the Gauntlet. It's been around for a number, like 4 years or so, but really hit its stride about 3 years ago. It's a gaming community that mostly plays games online. And at the end of 2018, I launched an idea with like 3 other GMs where we would do a pretend imprint of a comic book that we called Gauntlet Comics. And it was a shared universe idea for RPGs. And we play all kinds of different RPG systems. We had a wiki, and we would kind of make NPCs in one game, and they would guest star in another game. And it was really fun and exciting. And as I was switching through and running games throughout 2019, I said, I'd kind of like to have like a street level supers game. And I looked through all of the supers RPGs that I have, trying to find something that really was different and exciting. And I couldn't find one. So I made one. The thing that's really different about Hit the Streets is that it is street level. Like you can't. One of the powers you can't have is you can't fly, because if you can fly away from your problems, it's not very street level anymore. And it's, to me, I like the fact that what keeps it street level is that you've got 2 different modes of doing things, and one of them is being normal. Like if it's a thing like doing your taxes or working your day-to-day job, which you have to pay the bills because you don't have any licensing contract, you're not part of the Avengers because you're just a street level schmo, you got a regular job, then you have to roll with the be normal mode. So it's a pretty simple system, easy to pick up. It's one character sheets, 1 page, and I can get people up and running in just a few minutes. Anybody who's played an RPG can figure it out. You grab a fistful of 6-sided dice and roll it. But it's been really fun. I ran it about 20 times in playtest before we decided to go with a Kickstarter, and I've run it a number of times since then. I've had a few GMs run it, give me feedback, and I'm really happy with Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, because it's my first game that I've ever actually made.
I think I found one of your character sheets right here, and yeah, that's beautifully simple. That's a great thing.
Oh, that's great that you picked out Chilled. That is the character that Walt played on Babies with Knives.
I remember that.
He showed up a little bit late, and he said, "Hey, just throw me somebody." So that was one of the pre-generated characters. That's all you need. You can jump in and play with that right there. It's kind of half of a character, half a page of paper, and you're good.
Cool.
Well, as awesome as being street level is, I think that you should tell people a bit about that. What the block generation is, because to me that's one of the more unique aspects of Hit the Streets. While it's similar to Dresden Files or Powered by the Apocalypse, where you're interacting with people, it interacts on a much different level.
Cool. Thank you, Alice. I really...
Is that this chapter here? Where are you at?
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Okay.
So in Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, rather than say you come out of nowhere with a block and you just, in a neighborhood, the group works together at the start of play to create their neighborhood. And it's a pretty quick and easy system where you start with like a blank sheet of paper, you draw a main street, and then everybody figures out, okay, where is it that you live? Where is it that you work within the neighborhood? And then come up with a cool few interesting features that make your neighborhood fun and notable and memorable, and maybe also terrible because there's street level crime, right? You have to fight something. I love the block creation system because everybody's pitching in, and so there's this, once you see it on paper, there's that built-in like, oh man, I've got to make sure that City Hall's okay, or oh man, everybody wants to save the donut shop. Fine. There's an example, State of States. That's actually one that was created by one of our groups. I just had my layout artist Jesse Ross pretty it up a little bit.
Yeah, I can see what you mean, because you get player engagement in the environment. It's not just City Hall.
Exactly.
It's our City Hall. It's not just a donut shop. It's old Salty Joe's donut shop with that terrible coffee that we all love. And
absolutely.
so,
And then if it breaks, and then if you destroy it during the game, you have to spend time fixing it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the other thing for the GM in the GM section, which is pretty robust. In the GM section, it talks about make sure that you update that map, right? What's going on. And a lot of the prep that I do when I'm running game to game is just look at the map and say, what would be some interesting things to change or evolve, or where is an area that they would like to explore. Like, oh, cool, we're looking at the Gauntlet City Comics, which was a joke, like comic book shop. Well, what if it's going out of business? Or what if the owner's thinking about he's got to burn it down for insurance money, and somebody finds out and they're worried about it? Come talk to the vigilantes or the superpower beings in Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, and then they do something about it. And that's what we're trying to play.
I always remember. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Alice.
Go ahead, Mike.
I happened to have a conversation one day with one of the fire inspectors in Tucson, Arizona, when I was working down there, and I was working at IBM. It's a huge campus, and none of the managers wanted to deal with her, so I had to, take her around their inspection, and we got to talking. And there's this one particular bar, I won't say the name on the air, but she's like, yeah, it always seems to burn down every 5 or 10 years whenever the owners seem to be hard up financially, and we can never prove arson, but and it was a pretty well-known bar in town. I was like, oh, okay, that's the bar that burns down every decade. That's good to know. So those kind of local details add a color to a place that otherwise, you don't really have. Anyway, Alice, you were saying, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying, for those for our audience that aren't familiar with the game but are interested in playing, how many sessions can they expect to get out of a campaign? Is it built for long games or short games, etc.?
That's a great question, Alice. I would say that Hit the Streets, Defend the Block is what I call kind of a short mini-series style game. It's not your forever game. It's the game that you might play in between, like, oh, we want to take a break from our champion session, or we want to take a break from running icons for a bit, and we want to explore just one neighborhood in our city. You come in here, you can play, I would say 6 to 10 game sessions is what I've found to be the most interesting. Kind of like one of the big inspirations, the Netflix Marvel series, like Daredevil, Iron Fist. Well, okay, let's not say Iron Fist, but like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones. How those were limited series, unfortunately. Thanks Disney. But yeah, I think you can really get everything that you want to get out of these particular characters in that particular neighborhood in 6 to 10 sessions.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to, because a lot of people write their games with the idea that this is going to be your new game, you're going to play it all the time. Whenever I've written an adventure or campaign setting, my thought is always, I'm trying to compete for your off-campaign time. I want to be the thing that you play when you guys take a break from whatever your main thing is. Because, so I like that. Alice, I'm sorry, you had a thought you were getting into.
Oh, I was just thinking that for my gaming groups, a lot of times we'll go these like really, really long campaigns, but we change systems along the way. And I think that the next time I do one of those, getting to a certain point where I say, hey, let's zoom in on this block, let's zoom in on a specific area for a little bit, we could switch to this system, convert the characters, and then convert them out after. And they've gotten this zoomed in on, we're just dealing with this one section for a few sessions.
Yeah, you can even use it as your origin story, right? They start at street level, and maybe you've got the idea of going up a few tiers, right? You want them to be like the next Avengers or the next Justice League. This is where they started from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think. Oh, go, Mike.
No, please.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great thing. Would you be willing to tell our audience a little bit about the mechanics of how you roll, how you play, etc.?
Absolutely. The base mechanics are taken from a game from Creepy Doll Studios called 1%er, which is called the Outlaw Biker game. It's kind of like the TV show Sons of Anarchy from FX. If you've ever seen that, this is the RPG for that. You play an outlaw motorcycle gang, and I borrowed that. So the way that you play Hit the Streets, Defend the Block, after you've created your neighborhood, is you sit down, create your character, which consists of some picks. You have some stats that you assign to it's like head and jaw and feet and hands, and those are just 1, 2, or 3 is the rating that you would assign to each of those. Then you get a couple of powers, and those powers are very broad categories. There are only 9 broad categories of powers that you assign. You pick 2 of those, and then those 2 are really up to the player to define how it works. And that's one of the things about Hit the Streets that's a little different from a lot of the other Supers games that I enjoy, is that in the Supers games, a lot of times you'll say, okay, well, I have this power, and either the book's been 3-4 pages defining exactly how that power works, or it's light in the definition and it's on the GM's shoulders to define how that particular power works. I decided to flip that, and because a lot of times the folks that come in, they have this idea for how their character is going to appear on the comic book page. So when you create that power, it's within that broad idea of it's either perception or it's highly trained, like for Robin, or say Nightwing. It's someone that has Olympic level athleticism. And so those powers are really for the player to define when they apply. So when you go into a conflict, let's say, all right, someone's trying to rob the local jewelry store, and you say, okay, I want to go in. There are a couple of regular thugs. I want to use my cool, let's say, Ghost Fist, right? We got that right there. We're looking at Ghost Fist. He's got the powers of body modification and his super stat is hands. So he wants to go in and beat up the 2 robbers in the jewelry store. Well, if he's using his ghost form to get in there, then the mode he's working in is B Super. So you grab 3 6-sided dice because that's the rating for that. Then you look at your stats. You say, oh, well, I'm going to beat him up with my fist. Okay, that's hands. You got the 6 in that because that's his super stat. So now you've got B Super of 3, hands of 6. You've got a total of 9 dice that you're going to roll, and you're looking for a 4, 5, or 6 on all of those. Now it gets a little more tricky if it's a really intense situation, because if you happen to roll say 1s in a very tense situation, so those 4, 5s, and 6s will give you the success, and you may beat up the 2 jewelry store robbers or attempted robbers. But if you roll a 3 or 4 1s, then it actually hurts you. So it's a thing where you've taken some damage in the fight. It ends up making those conflicts really, really fast, right? So it's going to take up, it's the kind of comic panel where it's like, or comic page where you have 3 or 4 panels worth of action and it's done. It's not a really protracted fight where you're going to have several rounds of initiative and the like. It's built to be punchy. It's hard in that you sometimes will win a fight but take so much damage that you limp away from the fight. But sometimes, you're super heroic, you roll really well, and everything works out. It's all aces. So does that, Alice, you feel like that's a good synopsis of is there anything you feel like I'm missing on it?
Yeah, just one question. What dice should I show up at the table with?
Six-siders. You know, if I had to Kickstarter to do over again, I would love to have like custom dice, but I was like, oh, I'm afraid. Like, I just want to make enough to lay out the book. But you just roll six-siders. You need a 4, 5, or 6 for successes. The GMs, their work is not to come up with, you know, a bunch of stat blocks, but you really just set up what's the challenge rating for just how many 4, 5, or 6s you need to be successful.
It's definitely a nice light system, similar to a lot of light systems, but I like that you took some twists for existing ideas that people may be familiar with. Like, you know, in Dresden Files and Powered by the Apocalypse, you already have an interaction prior to character gen or during character gen, but you took that a step further and created the neighborhood where you're investing in. And, you know, in systems like Supers, there is a lot of freedom given to the player on skinning the power, but you went extra light on that aspect where you went to the extreme. So it's all on the player. So I like the spins that you definitely took, and it's definitely a game that I have had some fun with so far, and I look forward to seeing what comes out. Do you have any other plans for expansions or any supplements or modules already?
You know, that's a great question. My current plans with Hit the Streets Defend the Block is that one of the Kickstarter stretch goals that we have is that there are a number of neighborhood play sets that are pre-done. Let's say that you show up at a convention and you don't really want to spend the first hour of that game slot drawing out a neighborhood. You'd like to come up with something that's a little more pre-planned. Those neighborhood play sets are predefined neighborhoods that already have some rivals and folks that you can get in and have conflict with. I like those. I want to pull those out and release them as almost system agnostic supplements for folks because they're really, really cool. There's one where it's almost like the neighborhood is a small, like little Nashville. So it's all about, you know, music stars and artists. And there's another one that's got some future tech and this weird corporation that you have to deal with. And so I'm going to pull those out and release them as neighborhood places that are pay what you want. Just go to drive-through, download them, and you can port them into any game as long as you want to do the conversion of like, okay, I need to stat this stuff up. Now, as far as modules and the like, I don't have any current plans. To be honest, I often use other people's modules as inspiration for things that are going on and Hit the Streets. I've bought a few Fan and Goat Games supplements and thrown them into Hit the Streets game sessions that I've run. It's a really flexible game in that way because really as a GM, all you really need to do is like, what are some cool ideas? What are some cool places? A few awesome looking characters. We can throw some pictures up for everybody to look at. And then think about, is there a big bad? Because the big bad is always a little bit more difficult to have a conflict against. And so, yeah, at this point, don't have any plans for modules, but if I get inspired, it's really easy to do, and I may have to stick one out because I love working with Drive-Thru RPG. They're very easy to work alongside.
Have you done print on demand with them yet?
I have not yet.
Okay.
We the Kickstarter was for print run, and so I'm here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There's a local printer that we're set to hand the files over. Someone found a typo, and I just like, let's just fix it now. So, but yeah, the plan is that once we have everything set up, then we're going to set it up for print on demand as well.
Okay,
Any advice, Mike, that you've run into?
That would be a long and tedious conversation we should have offline.
Okay.
I had one book we did a few years back called Extreme Earth. John Gibbons was the artist. We did it for multiple systems. Mutants, Masterminds, Icons, Hero System. And it took us almost a year to get all the different versions approved and working for print on demand.
Ouch.
Yeah, and they worked within a week or two on Lulu.com just fine. But just something about the way the approval process and with DTRPG and Lightning Source. Anyway, it's a horrible, painful story. But hopefully it goes better for you, though.
I hope so. And I may bend your ear, or have you bend my ear a little bit for some thoughts around challenges you run into. I appreciate that.
Yeah, this is a few years back, and things have been better since then.
Good.
will say they fixed most of the problems. I don't want to dwell on that too much, but no, this is definitely cool stuff. So you've got this game that's a big hit. It's burning up the BAMFSIES. I know Alice is asking about future plans for the system. Do you have other projects you're thinking about as a game designer that are appealing to you?
I do. It's probably not a BAMF related thing, but my next project is a baseball RPG.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I'm interested because I every once in a while someone says, it'd be really interesting, a sports RPG, because it's a popular genre of like, well, there's a lot of manga dealing with kids.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So Bat Hack is what I'm calling it, because it uses the Black Hack RPG, which is an OSR style RPG, but it's about minor league baseball, and it's the idea of folks who are minor leaguers and they have to work, at the local grocery store for a couple hours a day and then run off for practice and try to make their dreams to make the bigs and be part of the, the MLB. So that's.
Yeah, actually, I had a cousin who was doing that for a while.
It's amazing. It's so fascinating. I really enjoy minor league baseball, and I know it's changed a lot over the years. Often I'll run the game in like a yesteryear. In fact, I had one friend, Jim Crocker, ran the game set in the in World War II, and it was like a league of their own. So he ran it with all girl baseball players with a little bit of history thrown in about the culture at that time, and that was really, really fun. The All American Girls series that Jim ran.
Oh, that's cool.
So
go ahead.
Oh, Mike. No, please, Mike,
please,
go.
Please. No, I insist. You go.
So for that baseball game that you got an idea for, first of all, I'd love to try it once that's ready. But for people who don't know anything about baseball but still want to play, would that still be something that they could do, or is it something that you're thinking is going to require a little bit of baseball understanding?
That's a great question. Last year, I ran a little bit of play test for a group of friends, Lowell, Patrick, Tyler, and Sherry. And Tyler was the only one of the group who really had any baseball knowledge beyond I've watched some baseball movies. And there was a little bit of an on-ramp at the early parts, but after the first session, everybody gelled in, and they had a really good time. I think it's a thing where as long as the GM knows baseball, you'll be okay. Now, I would not recommend, if you don't know baseball at all, you probably shouldn't GM it at this point. But the eventual goal is to make it a kind of product that anybody can pick up.
Cool. Well, what were you going to say, Mike?
I was doing the irrelevant tangent thing. I was going to tell you charming stories about my cousin's time in minor league baseball in Colorado, and that's not relevant at all. It's RPGs, so it's okay. Unless you
would love to hear it sometime. That sounds cool.
I just semi-pro sports in general. When we think sports in America, especially, you used to think of guys who make a lot of money doing what they're doing, but you get one tier down from the pros. You're in semi-pro football, or you're in semi-pro wrestling down at the National Guard Armory, or minor league baseball. These guys can't actually afford to pay their rent on what they make. And so there is a billet system of fans who let them stay in their houses. And sometimes they'll have side hustles in the community where they're making money, sacking groceries, or, running baseball camps at the local junior high, or whatever they can do to make ends meet. And I could see how it'd make an interesting story.
Yeah, that's part of creating a character in Bat Hack is how do you make ends meet? You have a few choices. Like, is it a thing where you stay with the host family, or do you have a side hustle, or do you room with like 4 or 5 other ball players and sleep in one of the closets, that kind of thing? Yeah, it definitely tries to live in that idea of the minor leaguers. It's like Fame, but with bats and balls. Like, you're giving up everything for the dream of making something that like 1%, less than 1% of all the people trying to do it who you play alongside will have a chance to actually.
Yeah, it's like music or acting or anything. There's like you say, very small percentage of people who break through, and lots of people with the love for it who are trying hard. So interesting. I would like to have you back on and talk about that when that time comes.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it, Mike.
So we have talked about the Gauntlet, and it occurs to me this is an online resource. We haven't thrown up a URL for them. So do people visit that online? How do you join? Do you have to learn a secret handshake? What's going on with all that?
All you have to do is head to Gauntlet RPG. There's a link to our forums. We run over 100 sessions of different games every month. We've got dozens of GMs who are posting stuff in all kinds of different time zones. There is a Patreon, so folks who sign up for the Patreon can get a little bit of early access, but then once that time passes, all the games that are open, anyone who wants to can jump in. We play. We have inclusivity and safety tools to make sure that folks who maybe you don't know the people that you're playing with, there's some guarantees that we're going to do our best to make sure you have fun and you're respected. It's mostly games that are like indie, small press stuff, and a lot of OSR as well. So you're probably not going to jump on and see any Pathfinder, but there's lots of Masks RPG that gets played, and I know Alice likes that one, and lots of OSR stuff as well.
Well, I like a lot of games. I think it's obvious by now.
Yes, that's true.
So
I'm just trying to stay in the supers vein. So
yep. No, I had no idea about Gauntlet RPG. I'm actually going to go sign up right now.
Fantastic.
I know that I met you from another game before we ended up playing, but I still can't figure out where.
It was somewhere on Google Plus.
Yep,
I'm sure
somewhere.
it was like Indie Plus or Google Plus.
And I mean, we had each other friended on Google Plus, followed each other on Google Plus, had each other's in contact book. I'm like, wait, this person's in my contact list. Gaming circle gets pretty small on the internet, and is the truth of it.
It is.
It's a shame Google Plus is gone because it seems like the RPG scene hasn't really been the same since this went away.
I completely agree.
Yeah,
well,
you can go to Twitter for some of that, but everyone's always so cranky on Twitter. It's
oh gosh, I know.
Yeah.
I know that Tinkar's Tavern started something called Gamers Plus, and I've lurked there a few times, but it doesn't feel like it's ever gotten the headwind that Google Plus had. That was such a
they had a critical mass of people. Yeah,
right, exactly.
So I mean, it's cool to have a party, but it's really a party when everybody shows up.
Exactly, Mike.
So all right, well, cool. So this was a successful Kickstarter. People can check it out right now on DriveThruRPG. Let me show your product page. People can actually see what it looks like. And the BAMFSIES voting is going on for another, we're going to the end of the month.
Okay.
And today's the 10th, so 21 more days. Currently, you guys are the big dog on the street, but that can change. So, hey,
it can change.
Yep.
I keep saying, like, my wife was like, it looks like you're doing great. I said, yeah, but just one update on Tiny Super's Kickstarter to all their backers, and we'll get swamped. So anybody who sees it and you believe in a different kind of Supers RPG, you want to give it a shot, so give us a vote. We'd love to have it.
Mm-hmm. So Jackalette, is she a lycanthrope? What's going on there?
Oh, Jackalette is she's a lycanthrope.
Okay.
That is a character that I said, Alex Prinz, who's the artist for the book, he did all the art in the book. I said, hey man, just maybe a cool character. And he threw this at me. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like amazing. But yeah, Jackalette has the ability to become a jackal person whenever she wants. But she also has a job as a school teacher during the day. So that's gotta cause some problems.
Wacky misunderstandings ensue. All right, cool.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, let me stop sharing that. Alice, you have any closing thoughts or closing questions before we wrap it up?
Nope. I think that I asked everything I wanted to.
All right, cool. Rich, appreciate you coming out, sir. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you, Alice and Brandon. You guys asked me to be on Babies with Knives, and the support you gave me, making sure that I got in on the poll, even though our game was published on the 31st of December. Mike, thanks for kind of making sure that that was really awesome. I appreciate all the support you guys have given me.
Well, it's new polling software, so I can actually add. Up until like last year, I couldn't add entrants after I hit the green button. So you got lucky technologically as well. So
awesome.
Lots of factors in your favor. But thanks for coming to talk to us, and to our listeners and viewers, thanks for checking out the BAMF podcast, and we will see you next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
There's an awkward moment after I hit end broadcast before the broadcast ends.